Good morning, Thomas MacLaren School. It is lovely for you to see me. It's Friday, April 17th, and I am going to talk to you about the WPA. This is an organization that went under a couple of different names, the Works Progress Administration and the Work Projects Administration. It was a part of the American New Deal agency, employing millions of job seekers to carry out public works projects, including the construction of public buildings and roads. It was established in May 1935 by an executive order. Also occurring in 1935 was the Great Depression. The fall of the stock market created millions of jobless. The New Deal series of programs and projects instituted during the Great Depression by Franklin Delano Roosevelt aimed to restore Americans to prosperity. When Roosevelt took office in 1933, he acted swiftly to stabilize the economy and provide jobs and relief to those who were suffering. Over the next 8 years, the government instituted a series of experimental New Deal projects and programs. Roosevelt and the New Deal fundamentally and permanently changed the U.S. government by expanding its size and scope, especially its role in the economy. Thus, under the leadership of the WPA, more than 1 million kilometers of streets were created, and over 10,000 bridges were built, in addition to many airports and much housing. Many famous structures were constructed with the help of the WPA labor and funds, including Camp David, the presidential estate in Maryland, often used for international meetings. In addition, were support of archaeological digs and preservations of the United States natural history. So here you see the plaque that is posted on all constructions, bridges, and buildings, the plaque indicating when the work was constructed. So the majority of the constructions were public buildings and public spaces, from post offices to lodges in national parks. A significant aspect of the Works Progress Administration was the Federal Project Number 1, which had 5 different parts: the Federal Art Project, the Federal Music Project, the Federal Theater Project, and the Federal Writers Project, as well as the Historical Records Survey. After only 1 year, over 40,000 artists and other talented workers had been employed through this project in the United States. One person is quoted to say, "The impact by the 5 major cultural projects of the WPA upon the national consciousness is probably greater in toto than anyone readily realizes." As channels of communication between the administration and the country at large, both directly and indirectly, the importance of these projects cannot be overestimated, for they all carry a tremendous appeal to the eye, the ear, or the intellect, or all 3. Pictured here is Haley Flanagan, who became the national director of the Federal Theater Project, as well as Eleanor Roosevelt, a strong proponent for the development of the Federal One conglomeration. In 1936, employment peaked at over 5,300 artists. The Art Service Division created illustrations and posters for WPA writers, musicians, and theaters. The Exhibit Division had public exhibitions of artwork from the WPA, and artists from the Art Teaching Division were employed in settlement houses in communities to give classes to an estimated 50,000 children and adults. They set up over 100 art centers around the country that served an estimated 8 million individuals. Many of the projects supported constructions that were occurring in the form of murals. Murals primarily on the interior of buildings. They embodied the sense of national pride, workmanship, and mutual respect of all skill sets. The Federal Music Project employed over 16,000 musicians at its peak. Its purpose was to establish different ensembles such as chamber groups, orchestras, choral units, opera units, concert bands, military bands, dance bands, and theater orchestras that gave an estimated 131,000 performances and programs to 92 million people each week. The Federal Theater Project employed 12,700 performers at its peak. These performers presented more than 1,000 performances each month to almost 1 million people, produced 1,200 plays in 4 years. The Federal Writers Project employed 6,686 writers at its peak in 1936. By January 1939, more than 275 major books and booklets had been published by this project. Most famously, this project created the American Guide series. This produced thorough guidebooks for every state, included descriptions of towns, waterways, historic sites, oral histories, photographs, and artwork. Between 1935 and 1943, when the agency was disbanded, the WPA employed 8.5 million people. Most people who needed a job were eligible for employment in some capacity. Full employment reached its peak. Full employment was reached in 1942 and emerged as a long-term national goal around 1944. This was not the goal of the WPA. Rather, it tried to provide one paid job for all families in which the breadwinner suffered long-term unemployment. Unemployment ended because of war production for World War II, as millions of men joined the services and cost-plus contracts made it attractive for companies to hire unemployed men and women and train them. Concluding that a national relief program was no longer needed, Roosevelt directed the Federal Works Administration to end the WPA in a letter dated December 4th, 1942. FDR wrote, "By building airports, schools, highways, parks, by making huge quantities of clothing for the unfortunate, by serving millions of lunches to school children, by almost immeasurable kinds and quantities of service, the Work Projects Administration has reached a creative hand into every county in this nation. It has added to the national wealth. It has repaired the wastage of the Depression and has strengthened the country to bear the burden of war. By employing 8 million of Americans and 30 million of dependents, it has brought to people renewed hope and courage. It has maintained and increased their working skills, and it has enabled them once more to take their rightful place in public or in private employment." Roosevelt ordered a prompt end to the WPA's activities to conserve funds that had been appropriated. The WPA ceased to exist after June 30th, 1943. I hope that you enjoyed this historical lesson and can see the relevance of it in this time in our nation's history. We all miss you, as you have undoubtedly heard. I love you. I miss seeing you. I hope that you are well, that you are supporting your family to the best of your ability, getting outside whenever you can, and taking good care of yourself. If you have a birthday today, please stand up. Many happy birthdays to you. Be well, have a good weekend, get outside. Oh, remember, I'm a huge proponent of naps, so maybe you could take one this weekend? I don't know. It was great to see you. Good to be with you, even in the virtual sense. You're all fabulous, and I love you. Bye.